Well, we've been joined in a first for us with a Skype interview by Chris from Orpheus Omega. How are you?
I'm good, man. How you doing?
I'm good, thank you. Now, it's been, I think we worked it out before, it's been since about 2015 since you were on the show last, and you had the last album cycle, and you're on tour currently and stuff. What generally have you been up to in the last sort of few years? Been a busy boy.
I thought it was only 2 years, which makes me feel really, really old just in that time frame now. I really thought it was only a couple. So it's been a while, and I don't know. I guess since then we actually have been pretty busy overall. We've gone back overseas again a couple of times to Asia. We've toured Australia a lot, and that's actually been really good. We've supported a whole bunch of different bands along with some headliner shows of our own, and I guess in that time we pretty much went from doing that third album, which I think for us was kind of like that real push forward for us musically, going from that to this new album and writing this one, and basically I think finally finding our sound as a band. I think this whole last like 3-4 years has just been touring with everyone, playing all these shows and really finding out what works for us as a band and actually being able to put that down on a record. And I think the new album, Where Your Sins, is like, it's that. So we've finally gotten to that point over all these like years of like, let's just, make a band, write some albums, do some touring, to really being able to go, well, what do we want to achieve musically? Like, what do we actually want as a group of people instead of just writing the songs and all that sort of thing? So yeah, it's, I think the last few years have been pretty fun, if not also like really stressful in a good way.
Yeah. Okay. So we've just touched on it. It's the new album, Where Your Sins. It's out now. It's your fourth album, but your fifth overall release. It's also your 10th anniversary of a band, if I'm correct.
This is now the 11th year. We did, technically last year we did the 10-year anniversary, I think. That's with right. Legions. We did a show for that. Yeah. But yeah, it's been over a decade now.
Wow. So
it's been a while.
Yeah. Well, how do you feel now that you're sort of at this point? Like you said before, you feel like you found your sound, you know who you are now, but as a person, as an artist and all that sort of stuff, how do you feel having been in the same thing and hitting this point and doing the things you're doing now versus, what you thought of when you first started doing it all?
I think we actually, when the album was sort of about to come out, we actually had that chat of being able to go, I think we're happier now than we've ever been at any other point in the band with where we are and what we are sort of striving for as a unit. It's the first time in 10 years that we've felt truly like on the same page, same paragraph, same sentence, with everyone musically and especially with the live shows and the rest of it. So I'm actually really happy. There was a little bit of a time, I guess maybe a few years ago, where we all had a lot of personal stuff going on, and that was a bit hard because it kind of took focus away from what we were doing with the band a little bit, and we were also kind of sort of working at our own stuff. But other than that, this is definitely, I guess, the most positive and stable time the band has ever had. And I think for us, creatively, it's the best time we're having. So that's the important part, I think.
Yeah. No, cool. Well, on the album, Where Your Sins, tell us a bit more about that. It's been called something of a watershed release, I think is in the description for it. And I think that's more to do with, you guys have, you're thinking that you found your sound, you've gotten what you are now. But what I guess behind the scenes provokes the thoughts that like this is sort of like that album for you guys, and what's more different for you guys? I mean, listening to it, I thought maybe there's a bit more melody and playing around with different space and time in there a bit more, so it is a bit more, it's not that you ever like anything else, but it's even more sort of unique in its own way, but it all fits together, like some hooks and some cool grooves in there and stuff too now. So what's different this time around on this record for you guys that makes it feel that way?
Yeah, I think it was just the writing process overall. I think this is the first album since the first one, and even then, I don't think we did it completely on that one. This time around, we jammed every single song and pretty much put every song together first before we recorded it, and played it together, and basically really, we didn't really write that many of the songs as a whole first before we came into the prac space. A lot of it was just ideas. So I'd come in with like maybe half a song worth of ideas and go, look, here's what I was thinking, and then work on the structure in the prac space, get the other guys to have their two bobs, and then that was the process for pretty much every song almost. And I think because of that, And because we know each other so well now, everyone's, almost every suggestion that we made was useful in one way or another. And so every song has this like unique identity on the album. So all the songs sound pretty different, but when you listen to them sort of together, it's like they all actually make sense. And I think that for us is why it's so awesome. We can listen to every song as its own story, but it's almost like, I don't know, it's like a series of books. Like if you're reading Stephen King's Dark Tower or something, or, they're all different books that, yes, the overarching story is all the same, but each one has its own cool thing that if you just read that book, you take one story away from it. I think that's how this album's come together.
Yep.
And for us, it's just like we can listen back to it start to finish as a band and not really have any songs that we feel like, that's a bit filler or this and that. Like now when I go back and listen to the other albums, like I think we've learned a bit from those to just maybe not settle.
Yep. When
it comes to a song, we really wanted to push ourselves with this one to just go, whatever idea we have, we want to push it to its absolute limit and then be excited by that. If we couldn't do that, then the song probably didn't warrant being on the album.
Yep. That's cool. That actually, it's kind of refreshing in a lot of respects because you hear, because this is almost like your longest time between releases on doing this record.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so from my perspective, it's refreshing to hear an artist talking about, no, you want to make sure you get it sort of right versus settling for getting something out because of a timeline or a perception of the outside world wanting something from you.
Mm.
Yep. So that.
Well, we wanted to have something like this out a year and a half ago, but like if we did, it wouldn't be the album that it is. So I think we just sort of kept. Like we pushed, not that we pushed things back, but it was like we just kept working on it, and all the process that went into it. Like obviously, even signing with EVP, getting this tour together, all those things took a bit longer than expected, but they all were necessary and worth it. I think if any of those things were rushed, the whole sort of the whole thing would have crumbled. It would have been a bit of a domino effect in the opposite direction that it's gone in.
That's cool. So with you guys, there's always a bit of thought involved in what's going on. It's never just an off-the-cuff kind of a thing, especially from what we did with the last record and going into this one. So the album title and the song titles, what's sort of your thought process in how they came together on this record?
Yeah. I think this album is a bit more... It's interesting because I feel like as people, we're in the most like positive mindset we've ever been, just in general. But the songs on this album, I think, are a lot darker lyrically, especially between Joao and I. And I think it's because we are in better places now, but a lot of the lyrics and themes are about darker times.
Yep.
But we can reflect on them better now that we've gotten through them. And I think one thing I wanted to try to do on this album was I do find a lot of the more, I guess, I don't know, like the more accessible metal bands at the moment tend to have a lot of those song themes that have the like struggle and get through it thing.
Yeah.
A lot of it's about the don't worry, it'll be okay sort of mentality. And my thing for this was everyone ignores the period where you're not okay and kind of just skips over that. And like that's the important part, is being okay with not being okay, and all the hard stuff that goes on is that's going to be a part of your growth. That's going to be a part of your journey. So a lot of these songs probably go into that a little bit more.
Yep.
But still have that positive outcome, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But for me, that was an important thing to touch on because, like, I've had a lot of different things happen where I was just like, I was always under the impression that I was this, like, super happy person, and then, like, all these dark things happened, and then it was like, well, everyone has that period. Something always goes wrong somewhere, and like we kind of don't talk about those things. We just want to talk about getting through them and how it's okay at the end, but you kind of ignore the important bit, which is the meat of the problems, you know? So I think lyrically this album's a lot darker because of that. But it's also still a very positive album overall. Yeah.
No, you've got, I think musically, you've got there's always that darkness with what you guys are doing, but on this one there was also a bit of like the balance of light and dark in the music sort of conveys that really well. Did you go for that on purpose, or was that organic? Or
I think it became a bit more organic because some of the songs from the last album that we played live were the ones that had maybe a little bit more clean vocals and a little bit more of like an upbeat vibe to them. And I think with this one, I worked a lot harder, and I hope it pans out live, but I worked a lot harder on my clean vocals because the one thing I realized doing tours with dudes like Trivium and Soilwork and stuff like that, and Lacuna Coil, was some of these people who don't necessarily listen to heaps of death metal got to sing along and listen to the lyrics that they may not understand if they're not specifically listening to us.
Yeah.
And having a crowd of people sing back some of the really important lyrics to you because it's just a lot easier to take in, I thought was a really important thing to do on this album for certain parts that I thought were like, okay, yes, you know, I can growl and I know I'm pretty confident with that, and whoever is into that's going to be able to know exactly what I'm saying. But for the people who haven't heard us or are only seeing us live for the first time, I want them to hear those bits, and hopefully what they hear in those lyrics and that part makes them want to hear the rest of the song.
Yep.
And so there was a bit of a conscious effort on that end, but it was more about just, you know, I mean, it was about making some of the lyrics more accessible to people so that they could actually hear it, I guess, to some degree. And that was just something that we picked up on after just spending so much time touring and just being able to interact with our crowds more.
Yep. No, cool. Well, moving on to, you've got 2 singles or videos, either way you want to look at it, out so far. You've got Suffer and Swim in the Black. If that's what I believe they're called that. Yep, just making sure I got those right, because I always type things out and then you go to your notes and it's like, fuck, I hope I got that right.
What have I done?
Yeah. And they're 2 very different videos. Like, one you did yourselves, one you did with Connor from Imperium Pictures.
Yeah.
So what was your thought process between those 2 videos, and why did you choose those 2 songs?
Cool. So they're obviously very polar opposite songs.
Yeah.
Both have some pretty dark lyrics, but they're just written very differently.
Yeah.
Stuffer we wanted to release first because I think it's the most visceral song on the album, and it's different to anything else we've ever done. Like, it really is. Like, yeah, there's no guitar solo, there's no real catchy, upbeat lick. It's all very, like, there's lots of melody to it, but it's all very dark.
Yeah.
That whole song is effectively one big punch in the face, and we wanted that to be the first song we released because I think it was represented, even though not every song on the album sounds like that, I think it represents the thesis of the album.
Yeah.
So that was the one we wanted to release first. And Swim in the Black, and we did that with Connor because he, you know, after discussing the idea with him, he was absolutely stoked to want to work on it. So we were like, yeah, absolutely. And he's done awesome stuff with so many bands.
Yeah.
So, and he's just a lovely dude to work with. So I was like, yeah, sweet, we're going to go with Connor. And then the second video, which was for Swim in the Black, was a bit more of like a pulled stripped back kind of thing. Like, it very much was almost like this, like, kaleidoscopy kind of vibe to a really dark tune. So it was like really fun to have that almost like that cheeky Night Flight Orchestra kind of vibe with a video, you know. And you know, I'm a massive fan of them, so I kind of maybe was happy to see that Kez wanted to go in that direction with the video, and we were like, yeah, let's do that, because I do love that sort of thing, and I think it just does contrast so well to Suffer.
Yeah, no, they're 2 very different tastes.
Yeah. And I think we've definitely got 2 or 3 more planned already, but I have no idea when we're going to get around to doing them.
You're in the middle of a tour at the moment, so yeah, that'll be that. On to other things, you were on a different label, I think, last time, and now you're with EVP Recordings. Yeah. So what made them... Yeah. I mean, it's a cool record label name for starters, but what made them an appealing home for you on this release cycle?
I think it was... I mean, they're already working with bands that we hugely respect and have worked with, like obviously Psychroptic and King Parrot and heaps of other bands as well. So that for us was already like, all right, if they're good for those bands, then it would definitely be worth chatting to for us. And talking to them on and off was like, okay, they seem to share the vision we have for the album. They want us to achieve what we want, and they want to be a part of that. So it just sort of fell in place and made sense after we caught up and had a chat. And yeah, so that's kind of it, really. It just kind of fell into place in terms of like everyone wanting the same outcome.
Yep. I think that's
so. Yeah, no, that was really good.
Do you find that sort of stuff is more important? Like, it's more important, I feel anyway, to work with the right people than it is to find. Like, the temptation's always to go with, like, for example, you could go with a much bigger label and hope to get your record out to much more people and stuff. But do you think it's more important to go with the right people that have the right vision, so you're all moving in the same direction as opposed to conflicting down the line?
Absolutely.
Yep.
Well, I can already think off the top of my head of a fair few smaller bands on huge labels who get no push and no effort whatsoever because they, for one reason or another. But obviously, the higher up the food chain you go, you're going to start off being a small fish in a big pond, and so on and so forth. So I think the mid-tier labels, at least from what I can see, the ones that kind of, I guess, maybe have to work a bit harder for their bread and butter.
Yep.
Also are the ones who are putting in that extra bit of effort for their artists because they're like passionate about it, and they're probably not as big in the money pile as some of the bigger labels.
Yep.
Not that there's that much money in music these days, but like they tend to just work that little bit harder for it. And I like that. I like that if they're fans of the music, they're going to want to push harder anyway.
Yeah. No, that's cool. Well, as we do this, you're in the midst of a tour with Omnium Gatherum. How did that come about, and how's it all going so far? I mean, we were talking before and you're having a blast, but let's tell the audience about it now.
Yeah. So long story short is we've known the dudes we've known a couple of the guys for ages, and we're trying to get this actually to happen on the last album tour.
Okay.
But we just couldn't make it work. Then we bought out Insomnium a few years back, and got to get along really well with a couple of the dudes. Obviously, Marcus is in Omnium as well, so we're like, all right, let's make this Omnium Gatherum Orpheus headliner happen.
Yeah.
Here's where our album's happening, and we made it work. And then we were, basically it was like, well, you guys are going to do Australia. How about you come over to Japan with us? Just that's I think that's how a lot of tours end up happening anyway. It's just that whole like, everyone gets together and is like, how can we make this awesome as possible? So we've spent the last 5 days with those dudes, and like they're just fucking hilarious dudes and absolutely just lovely people. So it's been the easiest 5 days ever. So it's always one of those things before you meet people, you're like, oh man, what if it sucks and then I'm stuck in a van with them for like 2 weeks? But absolutely lovely dudes. So I'm very much, we're all looking forward to spending the next few weeks with them, and basically showing them around Australia a bit, and maybe having a barbecue with them, and really showing them real Australian culture, I think. It's looking good. The Australian tour is looking awesome as well. Like we put a lot of effort into also like the support bands on this tour, because my mentality is always, I hate seeing a tour lineup where it's like, oh, awesome headliner, and then the supports suck. It's like, what? Like, supports are half the reason people will go as well. Like, if people don't know who these bands are and you want numbers there and people to have a good time, put some good bands on. Yeah. I basically looked at all these bands and went, if I was at these shows, what bands would I want to watch? Who would I go there early to see? Yeah. So I think that's an important way to look at it. And so at the moment, we've got a pretty killer lineup of bands, and I'm actually kind of shattered. I'm going to be spending most of the time like tour managing and playing, because I won't get to watch them as much as I'd love to, unfortunately.
That's usually the way it works, though. You start to run things and you have a bit less fun overall, which is the sad part of it all.
The rest of my band's going to have the best time ever, though.
That's usually how it works. Well, you are having the Australian tour coming up, so run us through the dates and some of the supports, whatever you can recall off the top of your head now, unless you've got a flyer on your head.
I think I should be able to remember most of them. Okay. So tomorrow, we start on the 10th, so we're in Canberra with Beast Impaler and Amorium. Friday is Sydney, and we've got Together as One, Flaming Wreckage and Alchemy. And then Brisbane, the next day, is Valvalor and Darklaw. Yep. And then next Wednesday is the 17th. That'll be in Adelaide. We've got As I Destruct and Freedom of Fear. And then in Ballarat, we've got Requiem and Triple Kill. And then we've got an all-day festival in Geelong, so I am not going to rattle off all 8 of the supports. But that's going to be sick. We've got a bad Friday at the Barwon because it's a public holiday. Yeah. So you may as well get shit-faced in Geelong and have a good time. And then the final show in Melbourne is on April 20th, and it'll be Primitive, Triple Kill, Trigger, and us, and obviously Omnium Gatherum. So I reckon that... I'm obviously fairly biased here, but I'm very much looking forward to the Melbourne show.
Yeah. Well, on that note, Nikki has a question for you, and this all ties in with Triple Kill doing their promo cycle and stuff as well. Yeah. So Nikki wants to know what sort of sandwiches are you going to be making for Triple Kill on the 20th?
So we did say to them, we'll make the sandwiches as long as they provide the ingredients, because obviously we'll be getting ready. But then I thought about it a little more and was like, what if we just get the grossest stuff we can and make sandwiches for them? And then that way, I mean, they've kind of dug their own grave with it. They didn't specify. There was no disclaimer. So, like, I'm thinking, like, hundreds of thousands in Spam together.
Ooh,
like,
wow.
Things like that.
Yeah.
Just, like, yeah. So, we'll see how we go.
Is someone going to be videoing
chocolate, things like that.
Is someone going to be videoing them eating those sandwiches, or...?
Yeah. I'm going to live stream it if I can.
That'll be cool. Switching gears a little bit now. Last time we spoke, we did touch on the importance of image with the stage uniforms and all that sort of stuff. And you're still doing that today, and you've got, seeing some recent photos of the Japan stuff, for example, you've got the flyers and that on the stage with you and that. So obviously it's still important to you. Do you think it's more important now, or is it just the same? Or what are your thoughts on it now as opposed to a few years ago?
No, I'd say it's even more important now. Last time was the first time we tried to commit to a specific style of uniform. Yeah. And honestly, we found that it looked really good on stage. I always prefer I much prefer watching bands who have some kind of uniform. I don't know, there's something about it for me that just looks more inviting and professional. Like whether it's something real simple, like everyone's wearing the same kind of shirt. The Omnium Gatherum dudes just have their little Omnium logo in one corner, and it just looks like neat. And then you've obviously got like Behemoth, who do the whole I think they've got the lady from Toxic Vision doing all their stuff, and it just, I don't know, for me it adds to the show. It's easy to write music that people like, but there's a difference between being good at like just the music side and then putting on a good show. And I think having a uniform or having a stage show that looks like a complete thing is really important. There's a reason Judas Priest decked their entire stage show out of Download with all the firepower stuff. There's a reason Iron Maiden have the ridiculous stuff. It adds so much to the show. There's a reason so many people love Ghost live. They make it an experience. And I think for us, we're trying to add that more and more to our shows because, and we're more than happy to just go up there and play our songs, but people are going to remember it a lot more when it sticks out. Yeah. And I think that's just something that is stuff falling in the background.
Yep, that's right.
I think for me, it's just important to have that, and we've always had that mentality. We didn't always adhere to it earlier on, but we're like, well, we are touring a lot more now. We are reaching more people. It's like kind of got to put our money where our mouth is, so to speak, in that regard.
Yep, fair enough. Well, on that sort of...
yep. Oh, sorry, I was going to say, like, even along that, this time around, we've added... We've basically gone to having our own lighting show on stage as well that's programmed to all the songs. Yeah. So along with the front of house lighting, we've also got like a programmed light show every night. And that's just like those little extra things that we feel is, just adding to that.
Yeah. No, I completely agree with the visual aspect, because I went and saw Ghost at Download. I don't know if you saw Ghost at Download. Yeah. But that was impressive. Like, you just sit there and you're watching, like, that's... I think we need more of that now to compete with, especially with how much, attention can be taken away so fast these days. I think it's more important to have that sort of string to your bow, but I don't know. What about you?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I think metal, there's, certain styles of metal bands that have been doing it forever, but like, look at the amount of masters. They've been writing the Viking thing for like 25 years now, and people fucking love it. And I do too. I'm just like in awe every time I go and see that. I'm like, yeah, you have that ship on stage and whatever ridiculous stuff you're doing. It's great. Keep doing it. So, yeah, absolutely.
So, as an artist and also as a producer, what do you think is sort of the biggest shift you've noticed in the industry overall in sort of the last 10 years? Because you've been doing this for a while and you've got the two different hats on, so what are the things that have really stood out to you and changed? Or what's changed the biggest or most for you over the years?
I don't know, because I just feel like a jaded old man every time I talk about that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Okay, so from there's two different sides of it. One, in the last 10 years, being able to record your music has become so much easier.
Yep.
I think at the same time, maybe something that's been lost a little bit is just, I think a lot of people have tried to get too nitty-gritty with stuff because of technology, maybe, and just the ability to throw so many things. Throw the kitchen sink at everything that people... I feel like, at least when I work with people, sometimes they kind of don't get to take that step back to just go, is this a really good song?
Yeah.
And more, there's a lot of bands that I'm like, yeah, these bands are really cool, but they don't do anything to stay in my mind. It's like there's this cool technical thing, or look how many awesome guitar layers are on that. I'm like, that does nothing for me. That's not indicative of a song being good.
Yeah.
Like, a song has to have a flow and a journey to it, and I feel like that's maybe something people have pulled back on. And it's like, sometimes it's okay to start with something simple that stays with you and then build on it, instead of just trying to cram everything into it.
Yeah.
So I think that might be the only thing that I can say I've noticed personally. Yep. And it is something I try to point out with bands, where it's like, okay, like, even if they're a technical style band, I'm like, okay, but you can still make it a bit catchy, you can still add some hooks into this. Like, something being technically impressive doesn't mean shit if you can't convey it in a way where it's going to make someone want to listen again and again. Otherwise, otherwise it's just notes. Yep. But that's me being old and jaded.
No, I'm with you on that one. So on that sort of side of things, is that the advice you'd pass on to other bands that are watching, or do you have something else you think would trump that in that regard?
I don't know. I think that's the main thing. It's just like when you're writing, it's like when you're writing a song, try to make sure that by the end of writing it, you're imagining yourself in the crowd listening to some other band play that song. And if you're excited by that, then it's probably a good song.
Yep.
If you're not, then it's probably just not good enough yet. And even like making that point of like being able to play lots of notes and still being catchy and all that. My prime example is always Psychroptic. Those guys are insane.
Yeah.
Like they play stuff that I could never play on any instrument, and it's still so catchy, and I can remember every riff that they write because they've written it so well.
Yeah.
And in such a way that it's so you can still digest it and remember it, but it's still ridiculously technical. So, I think the idea is like serve the song first. Always serve the song first before you serve any individual instrument. That's I don't know. Otherwise, I don't see the point of writing a song if you're gonna just favor one thing.
Yep. No, cool. I agree with that. Now, switching gears again, you've got Monolith Studios, which we've talked about in the past, and that seems like that's growing for you. So how's it all going, and what is coming out of your studio soon as well, if you're allowed to spill a few bits and pieces out of that?
Yeah, it's more about remembering more than anything. It is going really well at the moment. I'm actually, it's the last, I guess, maybe the last 18 months have been the best so far. It's just been awesome working with so many awesome bands. Stuff that's coming out that I'm really excited about. The Darker Half album is going to be coming out. That's been a pretty long project, but it's come out really well, and I think it's my favorite album that the guys have done.
Yeah.
I didn't get to produce it. I was on mixing duties on it, but I had an absolute blast. It's a phenomenal album.
Yeah. While the dogs go off in the background.
The new Cricket stuff is awesome. There's a new Primitive single coming out as well next week. There's actually a lot of stuff that's sort of coming out later this year, I think, or more middle of the year, but I'm not going to lie, I haven't remembered because I've just sort of been project after project, and then it's kind of someone will mention that something's coming out in 2 days, and I'll be, oh yeah, shit. Get a blow up the old Instagram and share the post. But at the moment, I'm working on the new In Malice's Wake stuff, which is awesome. I didn't think the guys could write a darker album than Light Upon the Wicked, but they've managed to go even darker.
Wow.
It's insane. I don't. They're the nicest dudes ever, so I don't really know where the inspiration comes from. But that's going to be insane. So I reckon that's definitely going to be one of my top picks of the year.
Okay, cool.
Absolutely.
Nice. So, on to a little bit of fun stuff just to start to round this out a little bit. What's an album, doesn't matter what it is, what's an album that you can't stop spinning at the moment? Everyone's got one album that they just go back to repeatedly for a period of time. So what's the one you're spinning at the moment?
Oh, I kind of keep going back to Black Dahlia and Murder Night.
Okay. Cool.
It's perfect. That album is flawless. And it's a 32-minute album with 9 songs or something. And you'd think okay, cool, it's all really short songs, isn't that? But they're so fucking good that by the time you get to the end of the album, you're like, oh shit, start again. That's just that album.
Yep.
I'm just trying to think. I'm sure there's some newer stuff in there. The most recent Anal Nathrak album.
So what was that?
Definitely a new kind of horror. The new Anal Nathrak.
Yep.
That is ridiculous. I mean, it's kind of just an ice pick to the head, but in the best way. It's really good if you need to hit the reset switch on your brain.
Yeah.
Those two are probably getting a fair amount of listens.
Yeah.
At the moment. Yeah.
Cool.
Absolutely.
And sharing the love a little bit, what's a local band that you've seen either come through the Monolith or going and seeing live? What's a local band that sort of really impressed you? What's a band that you really dig at the moment that you think we should all be keeping an eye out for to see what happens next with them?
I feel like I'm entirely biased on this one, but I feel like, and if people haven't heard of them yet, then please do. Triple Kill.
Yep.
I think they're going to be one of the biggest metal bands in this country at some point. Like, they're ridiculous. Those boys are like I was having a joke the other day with our guitarist where I was just like, oh man, I wonder how long it's going to be until we're supporting Triple Kill. It's one of those things. They're the nicest guys you'll ever meet. They're the funniest guys you'll ever meet, and they're really good musicians. Their music's really catchy and clever.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think like if there's any band to check out that's like coming up, it's Triple Kill. That's my honest answer. I mean, I love everyone and I feel bad.
Yeah,
like,
it's always a loaded question, but yeah.
Yeah, but I know they've just got something that like I wish I had. Like, it's great.
No, all right. So you've got a platform here with us and our releasing of this interview. So what's something you'd like to say to your fans on this open platform now?
First of all, thank you for having me on again, dude.
That's
after
all right.
this longest of time.
My pleasure.
But honestly, I think for us at the moment, for anyone who's into our music or is like looking to check it out, this new album is by far the best music we've ever written. I think it's the most honest music we've written as well, if I could put it in one way. So by all means, definitely check it out. I think there's something on there for everyone, just because this time around, everyone in the band had an equal influence on this album, and everyone in this band listens to a lot of different music.
Yep.
So I think if you're just, a metalhead in general, you'll like the album. I'd be pretty surprised if there wasn't something you loved about it. If, not all of it maybe, but yep. I think there's definitely something on there for everyone.
Cool. So then, apart from the upcoming tour which we've already gone over, what is generally coming up next for you and Orpheus Omega?
I'm hoping to take a month off once we're done with this one. But it's honestly been pretty non-stop because of so many things. But I think Europe's the next one. That's what we're trying to work on at the moment. We want to go over there. We've got some other Aussie stuff coming up that we'll discuss shortly. Yeah. But Europe's the big one. That's we've been meaning to go for ages, and trying to tee up the right tour at the right time's hard.
Yep.
Especially when you have to sort of cater 5 people being able to take off, roughly a month of work, and it's pretty difficult. But we want to make that happen, and that's sort of like where this album's going. We don't really have a choice but to do it. Yep. We have to. Yeah. So I'm definitely looking forward to making that work.
All right. So at the end of every interview, I don't know if we did it last time we had you on, but we do this thing called the bin. And are you familiar with that concept of us and what we do? Yeah.
Oh, I do.
Okay. So what do you want to put in the bin for us?
Wait, I can put anything in the bin?
Anything you like. Anything you like.
I'm trying to think. What? Damn, I had something that I forgot. I was trying to think. There's really just a lot of stuff at the moment. People who sympathize with white supremacists, that can go in the bin. Yep. There's no place for that. That's my bin thing for the week.
Fair enough, man. No, with you on that one.
I think maybe the expansion on that is people who are extreme in their views on social media. That can go in the bin. There we go.
I agree with that one completely as well.
I ain't got time for that.
Nah, they're 2 very good points, my friend. 2 very good points. Well, we'll wrap up the interview there. Thank you so much for taking the time out. I know how busy you are right now, so I really do appreciate you taking the time out to have a chat to us, and hopefully the tour and everything else coming up for you goes really well. All the best with everything coming up.
Thanks so much, dude. And it's always a pleasure to talk to you, so thank you so much.
No worries. Speak.